like the way she smiles. She got me staring for a while. Got me staring for a while. Yeah.
Hi everyone. So today I have a sewing tutorial for these men's linen shorts, and I have a sewing pattern available on my website at sewrenewfashion.com, which will also be linked below in the description. Obviously these shorts can be worn by women as well, but I've made a ton of these shorts for my boyfriend so that we can have matching outfits, and he loves them. They're super comfortable and cute. These shorts are great in a linen fabric and are great for a vacation or summer, but they also look really good in other fabrics. I've done it in a variety of different fabric types and colors and patterns. These shorts have a 6-inch inseam. They have a pocket on each side and a elastic waistband with adjustable ties so that they can fit securely. Go check out the pattern on my website and let's get into the tutorial. As always, you first want to start by cutting out your pattern pieces. I did cut out, iron, and pin my waist tie off camera, but what you want to do is fold the two edges into the center and then fold it upon itself. I just couldn't really film it because I was struggling to get the fabric to stay in place. To start, you should have one waist tie, your waistband. You should have elastic and two front pieces. You're going to want two back pieces and then also two pockets that are folded in half. I always like to start with just serging the edges of my pockets just to get that out of the way. If you don't have a serger, you can instead use a zigzag stitch over the edge to finish off the raw edges. I'm now going to pin both the front and the back pieces right sides together, and you're going to want to do this from the crotch up to the top of the shorts. I did forget to show the back, but the front is more important because it's a bit tougher to work with the fly. You're going to want to sew all the way down, and when you hit a corner, you're going to want to put your needle in, lift up your presser foot, and then shift so that you can get a sharp corner. Also, make sure you're sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I also like to sew the waist tie now just to get that out of the way, and I just do a straight stitch along the edge. Now right along where I sewed the shorts together, I'm just serging the edge. To do the fly, I like to pin starting from the crotch seam all the way up evenly about 2 inches from the edge. I then flip the shorts over so that the fly is underneath the right side when you're looking at the fabric, and I pin down on top to make sure everything stays in place. When sewing the fly down, I like to basically try to feel where the edge of the fly is underneath the fabric and try to go just on the edge, making sure to catch the fly underneath with your stitch. It can be a bit tough around the corners, so I like to put my needle in and turn my presser foot slightly so that I can get a nice crisp turn. And at the end, when you get to the seam, you're going to want to backstitch to finish it off. I like to do another stitch about a 1/4 inch from the initial seam using this first seam as a guide. I also stitch down the top of the fly so it doesn't move around. I also like to push the seam allowance to the right side, the same side that the fly is on, and top stitch it down. I also do 2 rows of stitching just like the fly, and I do it on the front and back, making sure the seam allowance is on the same side. Here I'm serging the 2 outside edges of the front and back pieces. I now lay my pattern pieces over the shorts to mark the top of the pockets on both the front and the back of the shorts. I use an erasable fabric marker to do this. Now you want to pin your pockets to the shorts, right sides together, starting from the marking at the top that you just made. Do the same thing for the other side, pinning the pocket to the shorts right sides together, so when you're finished, you should have the shorts and pockets connected in a circle. I sew all the pockets to the shorts with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and after I press the seam allowance towards the pocket side, I top stitch the seam allowance down. Now you want to match up the front and the back of the shorts, starting with where they connect to the pockets, and pin them together. I like to start with the top and bottom of where the pockets meet the shorts so that it lines up nicely. And you should also pin together the top and bottom of the pocket. Just a side note, I used the draft for my pattern by accident, so my seams didn't line up perfectly, but the finished pattern will have the seams line up perfectly. I also like to pin together the front and the back of the shorts just inside of where the pocket is because we don't want a massive pocket hole. I tried to adjust the shorts so that the seams underneath match up with the seams on top, and I do this by feeling through the fabric where the bulky seam is and trying to match it up. I use my pattern piece again to mark the bottom of the pocket hole so that I can close up the side seam. I start by sewing the top of the side seam together, and then I pivot to sew the top of the pocket together. For the bottom of the pocket, I like to first sew across where I had marked, doing some back stitches for added durability. Then I pivot and sew down the edge of the leg. Then I sew the bottom of the pocket closed. Now you want to match up the crotch seams and pin them together. I like to start by pinning together the center of the crotch and then the ends of the shorts, and then I pin in between. This ensures that the seams are pinned together evenly. Now sew together the crotch seams from one leg to the other. The ends of these shorts have a bit of a weird corner, but trust me, this is for finishing the leg holes properly. The seam allowance has to be made like this so that when you fold up 1 inch twice to finish the bottom of the shorts, it won't get all bulky with the extra seam allowance. Now I sew the waistband together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and the right sides facing one another, and then I serge the waistband and crotch seams that I just sewed. I folded the waistband to find and mark the center front, and then I mark a line 1 inch from the bottom edge. I first iron on interfacing to this area, and then I switch my sewing foot to a buttonhole foot to create the holes for the waist ties. I use the line I marked to line up the mark on my buttonhole foot, and then I sew a buttonhole about a 1/2 inch long on either side of the center of the waistband. You may want to practice on scrap fabric if you don't have a lot of experience with making buttonholes. I erased my markings with my fabric marker and used a seam ripper to carefully open the buttonholes. Now, fold and pin the waistband with the wrong sides together at the front and center back. You'll then want to line up these two markings to find the two sides of the waistband and pin them. I matched up my waistband to the shorts using the markings at the front and sides to pin the waistband to the shorts at the front, back, and side seams. I pin these areas first, and then I pin in between to make sure that the waistband is properly attached. I sew the waistband to the shorts with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure to leave a couple inches open at the very back to insert the elastic. I cut my elastic to the size indicated in the pattern, and I like to fold one end in half and pin it with a safety pin. I then pull the elastic through the waistband using the safety pin. When the elastic is pulled through, I sew it together a few times with a zigzag stitch. With the elastic finished and inside the waistband, I sew close the opening in the waistband and then I serge the raw edges. I like to sew the elastic to the waistband, so I mark the center back and then I pull the elastic until the waistband is fully extended and then pin the center front. I do this with the sides as well, and this ensures that the elastic is evenly inside the waistband, so when you sew it down, the ruching is evenly distributed. Now I sew down the elastic about a ½ inch from the top edge, making sure to pull the elastic evenly while sewing. I do another line of stitching at the bottom of the waistband as well. Now I use a safety pin to pull the waist tie through the buttonholes and around the waistband. The safety pins help a lot with this step. Once it's through, I pull the waist tie evenly through the shorts and tie the ends. I like to sew the waist tie into the center back of the waistband so that it doesn't fall out in the wash. To finish the shorts, I first iron the leg holes up 2 inches. After this, I unfold it and then I fold the seam allowance up to the fold I just made so that it is folded up 1 inch. This makes it easy to do a 1-inch double folded hem around the entire leg hole. The weird corners on the inside seam of the leg hole should line up with the folds so that the seam allowance doesn't pucker up. I pin the hem and then I sew it down along the folded edge just under 1 inch away from the edge of the fabric. Now you're finished your shorts.
She got me thinking life could be better. These songs start to feel like love letters. I should tell her now what I am.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like and subscribe if you like this content and comment what you want to see next. Bye.
I'm telling you now, I'm telling you